Hey, welcome to the podcast. Sit back, relax. Try not to throw nothing at me because you won't hurt my feelings. You'll just hurt your computer. This podcast is brought to you by your host, me, Robert McCune. Okay, so I have a lot to discuss today. Why don't you just sit back and enjoy? So, if you remember on my podcast from September 30th, I reported a U.S. Coast Guard vessel on a routine patrol in the Bering Sea off Alaska reported an encounter with a Chinese guided missile cruiser, which was later discovered to be traveling with two other Chinese naval vessels and four Russian naval ships. Well, now, two Air Force warplanes intercepted a pair of Russian bombers flying in an international airspace near Alaska. The North American Aerospace Defense Command said Tuesday it detected, tracked, positively identified, and intercepted the two Russian Tu 95 Bear H bombers, whatever the hell those are. They sound big and nasty, though. So they caught these two bombers entering and operating within the Alaska Air Defense Identification Zone. They were intercepted by a pair of F 16 fighter jets promptly. So I'll tell you, with everything that's going on, Russia is either trying to make a statement here or testing to see if they can find a weak spot in our defenses. Too much activity too soon, and this could get ugly really quick. So here's a statement from the government to try to deflect the situation, as they usually do. NORAD said in a statement the recent Russian activity in North America within the Alaska Air Defense Identification Zone is not seen as a threat, nor is the activity seen as a provocation. Oh, I see. That's perfect. So let's send a fleet of Navy ships and fly some bombers next to their coast and see how they think if it's an act of aggression or not. According to the Federal Aviation Administration, the air defense identification zones are airspaces, areas in which the identification, location, and control of all aircraft are required in the interest of national security. It's all I know is this incident comes at a high stress period in the American Russian relationships, given what's going on across the world. And the U.S. has actively supported Ukraine with humanitarian and military aid in its war against Russia. In addition, the Biden administration has slapped Moscow and Russian oligarchs with sanctions. So maybe it's time to invest in some concrete and a shovel for that man cave you've been wanting. Just don't forget to put it about 10 feet underground with some high grade nuclear filter system. Some food, water, enough for a month or two wouldn't hurt. Oh, and some toilet paper. And forget that. If the last apocalypse uh, we just went through didn't teach you anything, you should have learned toilet paper is worth its weight in gold during a disaster. Oh, yeah, and don't forget something to crap in while you're in there. Uh, it might be a bucket with some kitty litter, but hey, at least it's something. You don't want to crap in the corner, do you? All right, moving right along. Here's something that is sort of interesting. It's not depressing for a change. Peter Billingsley, 51, returns as Ralphie in a Christmas Story sequel. That's right, Christmas Story. You'll shoot your eye out, kid. That's got to be one of the most famous movie lines in history. So, after 40 years, Ralphie Parker is back. The classic 1983 holiday comedy, A Christmas Story, is at long last getting a new sequel, which will premiere on HBO Max on November 17th. And unlike with past sequels and spin offs of the film, this one is a direct continuation that will feature many members of the original cast. That list includes Peter Billingsley, who stars once again as Ralphie. Man, I wonder if his kid is going to want a Red Ryder BB gun like he did in the original film. Okay, that's enough mental break, so we're going to jump back into the depressing crap again. And here we go with another example of tyranny at its finest. Governor Whitmer of Michigan wields vetoes on emergency power limits. Whitmer vetoed an 8 bill package that aimed to limit the governor's emergency powers more than 2 years after she triggered the 1945 law to declare a state of emergency for as long as she thought necessary. And that sounds just like a dictator to me. And I think we're all way past the state of emergency phase on this COVID thing. For the most part, everyone's back to living their lives as they did before this crap all happened. But, yep, once a politician gets a taste of power, it's like a wild dog with a bloody steak. Good luck getting it away from him. Representative Julie Alexander, a Republican from Hanover, said the bills were part of a 30 bill plan to limit emergency powers. And with a few strokes of her veto pen, Governor Whitmer blocked the most basic openness and accountability that Michigan citizens expect from their state's government. I think every state's citizens expect that, but nobody ever gets it. Okay, moving right along. McDonald's. McDonald's is now officially selling Krispy Kreme donuts. That's right, donuts. Like they don't have enough unhealthy food on their menu. They got to add donuts now. McDonald's may have started as a burger restaurant chain, but these days the chain seems almost as famous for its egg McMuffins and hash browns as it does for their lunch and dinner items on the menu. If you remember, McDonald's breakfast items have become a modern classic, and back in 2015, the chain even started serving breakfast all day. But unfortunately, McDonald's suspended its all day breakfast in 2020. However, it didn't give up on breakfast entirely. In fact, its morning menu has seen some innovation in recent years. These days, the McCafe menu sounds like French, McCafe. Well, at McDonald's features everything from espresso to pumpkin spice latte. And now to include baked goods. The chain just launched a new limited time cheesy breakfast pastry, and it looks like it's exploring some other unique ways to ramp up its breakfast menus. So, McDonald's just announced a unique limited partnership with Krispy Kreme at some locations that'll bring donuts to the menu. Now, McDonald's intends to roll this idea out slowly, starting on October 26th, and customers living in Louisville, Kentucky will have the unique chance to taste it first. So, if you're looking to get your donut on, let's hope it's a big hit and McDonald's spreads the love to other states. Okay, so I have another story here, but it's from unconfirmed sources, so I can't stand by the legitimacy of the story, but it sounds plausible to me, and that's why I'm bringing it to you. This just might back up that story and the idea of creating that new cement man cave. So, researchers at Boston University have developed a new COVID 19 strain with an 80% kill rate. I guess the first batch of COVID didn't kill enough people, so it looks like this might be the next one on the loose. For the life of me, why in the hell would anyone want to create this? So, was some scientist sitting around a table drinking their coffee and discussing the day, and then someone say, "Hey, I bet we can make a more deadly virus than the Chinese. Let's show them how it's done." So these intelligent people apparently the lethal variant is a combination of both Omicron and the original virus from Wuhan. It is said to be 5 times more infectious than Omicron, but it's okay. The strain was developed at the school's laboratory, which has a biosafety level 4 clearance, the same as Wuhan lab that leaked the COVID virus in the first place. Yeah, we're all good here. When asked, the university said this virus was created to better understand the virus to prepare for future treatments. Well, this makes absolutely no sense to me. Why would the government need to prepare for a custom designed virus that would need a custom designed treatment that would only work on that particular virus? So here we go. I found this little gem, which looks like it's the perfect cover story for this last article. This was written by Science Alert Publication. The Arctic could soon unleash the next pandemic, and here's why. As the world warms and the glacier melt continues, the Arctic could become fertile ground for the new viral pandemics, with climate change increasing the risk of the next Ebola, influenza, SARS CoV 2 arriving sooner rather than later. In a study, researchers looked at soil and lake sediment from Lake Hazen. I think they mean Lake Hazard in this case, anyway, the largest lake by volume in the North Arctic Circle. Sequencing segments of DNA and RNA found in the soil, the scientists sought to identify the pool of viruses presented in the environment. By using a computer algorithm to contextualize the virus with animal, plant, and fungi hosts present in the area, the team was able to figure out the viral spillover risk. That sounds like that should be the way they check for viral sexual transmitted diseases. Okay. Anyhow, that's the ability for viruses to flood new host species and keep spreading as SARS did, moving from populations of wild animals to humans. So, what do you think? Could this be the next pandemic cover story from the government, and they'll use it to when they release their next big deadly virus on us? And this next thing should be concerning to all of us. I know I'm pretty interested in it. With all the talk about doing away with gasoline engines from states like New York and California by 2035, here's something I ran across. This article is from the Washington Examiner. Colorado electric vehicle owner called a road trip across the state of Wyoming very difficult after it took 15 hours to drive only 178 miles, a trip that would have taken around 2.5 hours in a gasoline powered engine. Alan Ohashi used to live in Wyoming, and he explained that a trip back to the cowboy state in his electric Nissan Leaf required a lot of patience. Since the first trip attempt, Ohashi has made the trip again, but was only able to cut the total travel time down to 11 hours. While waiting to charge, he noted that he often spends extra money shopping or eating in addition to the charging cost. So, yeah, let's go electric. Sounds like fun. And a huge waste of time and money, though. But hey, it's for the environment, right? All right. And to wrap up this podcast, I leave you with this bit of news. The Ukrainian Situation Report. Iran officials admit to selling Russia ballistic missiles. So, Iranian officials have for the first time acknowledged plans to sell Russia hundreds of short range missiles, ballistic missiles, and drones. Acknowledgement flies in the face of previous denials by Iran about selling missiles and drones to Russia, despite the glaring fact that they've already done so. So, a deal was agreed to on October 6th when Iran's first vice president, Mohammad Mokber, two senior officials from Iran's powerful Revolutionary Guard, and an official from the Supreme National Security Council visited Moscow for talks with Russia about delivering of the weapons. And the U.S. State Department assessed that Iranian drones were used in the morning rush hour attack on the capital of Kiev. And this shit just keeps getting better and better as more countries get involved. This is looking more and more like it's turning into another world war. Well, I'll leave you with that. That's it for the news today. Stay frosty, and I'll talk to you when I talk to you.